Welcome and welcome back to the latest transmission of Rice Against the Grain. Today I am joined by Peter Wilson. He is a truth seeker, an educator, and the host of 2021 Return to Democracy YouTube channel. And he has been on the show before. In fact, I will include links down below in the video description and above for the playlist that I created with his 2 previous appearances. I encourage you to check those out before proceeding with today's video. Before we get into it, make sure you visit ricetvx.com and sign up for my mailing list so you never miss an update or new Rice TVX and Rice Against the Grain content. You will also find links to all of my various channels as well as my social media. Make sure you're following both of my YouTube channels, Rice TVX as well as Rice Against the Grain. And due to censorship, make sure you follow me on other alternative platforms such as Rumble and Odyssey, where I do post up exclusive content. If you want to support Rice TVX, be sure to check out and join my Patreon channel, where you will get early access to my videos with no ads, unedited. You will also get exclusive content and more. Also, another way that you can support the channel and get a free half ounce of silver is via my partnership with Money Metals Exchange. Visit moneymetals.com, be a first-time buyer, purchase a minimum of $100 worth of goods, use the promo code RICETVX at checkout. You get a free half ounce of silver, and it supports Rice TVX and Rice Against the Grain. I will include links in the video description for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything shared on today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on today's show is a returning guest. He hasn't been on the channel since late 21, but he has been on the channel twice, and I will have a link down below in the video description with his 2 previous appearances. By the time this video comes out, I will have reposted them on my new channel, Rice Against the Grain. So make sure you're checking out those previous episodes. I would encourage you to watch those before you watch this so that you get a better, fuller understanding of who this guy is. Today, I am joined by Mr. Peter Wilson. What's going on, my friend?
Great. It's great. Thank you very much for having me back on. I've never realized that it had been so long since I've actually been on, but very happy to be back. And yeah, I'm excited to have a chat today.
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about before we started recording. And again, I got to shout out Dime Bar for staying on top of me to make sure that I got you back on the show. He was aware of my burnout phase that I explained to you. And now I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. It's unfortunate. I'm sure that you can agree with this without me mentioning people's names, but there have been people who I brought on my channel and interviewed who didn't quite turn out to be who they claimed to be, and cause harm to others ultimately in one way or another. And that was also a big part of me taking a back step away from the legal fiction stuff. It's almost as if I've got to go through a better vetting process with people before I even invite them on my channel, which is very sad, very, very sad. Somebody who I just had on recently, I think you're familiar with, is Mr. Pete Stone from the Sovereign Project. You familiar with him?
Yeah, I know Pete. Yeah, I've met him literally face to face. Had a chats with him and everything. Yeah, and I've done interviews with him as well. Very nice guy, good guy. Yeah.
Are you guys in close proximity to each other in the land of England?
Well, no, it's about like 3 hours drive away from me.
Okay.
Well, if you compare it to America, I suppose that's close, but you know, it's I'm not popping down for the cup of tea anytime soon.
I totally understand. That's cool. I was just curious, since you guys are both in England, in Britain, in UK, I don't know what you call it, but didn't know what your guys' relationship was. I know you said some good things about you, so I was just curious. To give people just kind of a summarization of what I remember from talking with you is you dropped out of high school, joined the Royal Navy. After the Navy, you were an entrepreneur. You've been into physical fitness. You became a gym owner, and you were dealing with like personal training and development. You became a professional fighter with kickboxing. You went to night school to study law. You ultimately didn't finish, but you were interested in learning more about contract law and tort law. And then you started looking into the financial system and how this debt-based system works, which towards the end of the conversation, we'll come back to that element because I appreciate the fact that you're educated when it comes to sound money. Did I miss anything in that summary?
No, that's quite a good summary. Like I
I
said,
know
it's
that you
been a
said
while.
you had problems in 2007. I thought it was 2008. And that was when we had a big, not just in the United States, but a global financial crash. And you experienced some difficulties during that time, which really led you into wanting to understand how the financial system worked, which again, that's why I think it's really important to bring to wrap up and tie this interview together at the end with bringing up what you were talking about before we started recording.
Yeah, well, you see, even way back in the late 80s and early 90s, I was actually involved in mortgages, and I was a mortgage broker. So I used to actually, I feel terrible doing it now, but like I used to arrange mortgages, for people wanting to buy their properties, wanting to buy houses. So I had been involved and knew about the financial market, and even on the pension side, I was involved heavily. I passed courses and study courses on pensions and mortgages, and we used to actually work and provide them for the general public. So I had a good knowing of the actual mechanics of it, the background mechanics of it, the percentages, the lending, how they did it, but I didn't know past, let's just say this point here, what was behind the actual physical cash side. So then when we got into the actual property development, when I was buying my own properties and renting them out, I had buy-to-let properties in the United States as well as in England. That was building up to that 2007 time when we were mentioned before about the big crash. And I remember like right across the world watching it all happen, and I was thinking, this is on purpose. This is not a coincidence. I'm not bothered. It's not a sob story. I don't want to, I'm not trying to look for sympathy. We literally lost everything, including our own home. And within a whim, so again, don't look for sympathy. I said, F this. I don't know if I can swear.
You can
I'm
say
leaving.
fuck all you want, man.
Yeah, I went, fuck this. I'm getting out of here. We literally, my wife Janina went, let's just go. Let's just leave and go and live in Spain. We'd always wanted to go and do something. I'd lived in Spain before. With been in the Royal Navy since like 16 years of age. I've traveled around a lot and done a lot like around the world. I went, boom, go. I've had enough.
Are you in Spain?
We were, yeah,
Okay.
we were in Spain. Yeah.
You were, but you're back. You're back in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Not trying to give out all your personal information, but okay. Your first two appearances was December 2nd and December 15th of 2021. Again, I really encourage people to check those interviews out because we really go into a lot of history, which I think is much, much needed. But since late 21, I mean, a lot has happened. A lot has happened to our financial system, which again, I want to come back to that. But what kind of progress? I guess before we kind of get into that, I want to highlight the fact that you do have your YouTube channel, 2021 Return to Democracy, and people need to go over and subscribe to that. There is a Linktree link that's got all of your different websites. We have claimyourstrawman.com as well as lawcommontoi.com and then smashadebt.com. Really quickly, do you mind kind of just sharing information about your YouTube channel and what you're doing with Claim Your Strawman and what you're doing with Law Common to I?
Okay, I'll just quickly say first of all, because it's dead quick, Law Common to I is just a course that I actually tell other people. It's not mine, but they should go on and have a look. It's quite good. There's two guys that run it, or at least one anyway, and he's called John Little. Very good law right? We're trying to stay away from the term common law. But it's law because that's the law from underneath, like, what do you call it? The creator. You can say God, whatever you want. So that's what that is. On my channel, right? And when I first started doing that return to democracy, right now, it's strange because like I got like a lot of grief from some people in the United States going, oh, we're not a democracy, we're a republic, don't tell us we're a democracy, which I never had. And it was a
Maybe
bit strange.
return to freedom, but you already named your YouTube channel. I mean, I think you can go in now. I don't know if you've done it, but you can go in and change your username, and maybe you could change it if you want it to. But I get what you're saying because I've heard a lot of people talk about that word, what it means, and what it represents.
Yeah, but you see that what it means to me and what I was trying to portray and what I've done in a lot of the videos is telling you about legum terri. Now, what is legum terri? Legum terri is the law of the land. Legum terri is true democracy. Okay,
How do you
so
spell that?
it's Legem. It's Latin.
Terram, like Terra.
Terry is Terr, and then it's AE, but in the real Latin writing, the joined together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. How they're
Yeah.
like when you see like eternal, it's like A and E combined.
Yeah. But you see that is talking about like ancient law of the land, not about common law. Right, as in, you see, because if people say to me now, like, oh, it's common law, and I'll say, well, explain to me common law, and they'll say, do no harm, don't rob anyone, and blah blah blah. You know that, don't you? So what they're actually explaining to me is natural law under the creator or under God or whatever it is. That is exactly what they're saying, right? Now, if you speak to what would you call him, an attorney, right, in America, or a barrister under the bar, a lawyer, right? In England, they call him either a lawyer, barrister, or solicitor, all the same thing, and all, by the way, owned by the City of London, which we'll talk about in a second, under the bar, which is the Bar Society. They'll call common law as what is created by a judge, right?
Yeah, like precedences. So like if like
there you go.
When you have a specific case that you're going to court for, a judge can look at previous cases and how they've ruled, and that is what's common to them. I'm glad that you're saying this because that common law word had like really got overblown and overused, and I feel like that's more of that controlled opposition stuff to try to get people off the trail of things because common law isn't something that's written down. It's just what's common to the culture at the time. And that will change based off of times and cultures. Yes. Yeah. I'm glad that you said that. And natural law is what most people, when they think of what common law is, it's actually natural law. But the common law that exists as like British common law is just based off of case precedents.
Exactly that. So, and the case precedents, by the way, it can't be any court. There's only two courts that it can be. And it's the same in the United States as well, which will be the top one is what? The Supreme Court? Supreme Court of the United States. Well, here we have the Supreme Court as well, or what we would call, and you would call it the same, an appeal court, the appellate.
Appellate court, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So they are the only two courts that can set case law, right? Like, it's different, but like, a local court or a county court or whatever it is, you can't go in and win a case and then, oh, listen, everyone has to copy my case because I won. Doesn't work like that. That's just, you just won, right? But when it goes to appeal, it goes to the higher courts and it gets into the higher judges. And when it goes right the way through in England, which is, however you want to look at it, it's followed by the United States. It just is because, if you look at the histories and everything and what we can prove to you and show you, like, United States is still owned by England anyway, unfortunately. And it's in the House of Lords. right? That's where it actually stems from, the House of Lords. And all of the judges, right? And I mean the real judges that create this common law, as in the case precedent, are all lords.
They're all lords.
Yeah. Lord this, Lord that, Lord whatever. So, you know, one of the most famous at the minute, because he's fighting all of these things that happened, and he's not fighting them, but he's arguing his point against them, you know, like what happened in 2020 going onwards. And he's called Lord Sumption. And he was the most senior judge in the whole of Europe.
Hmm.
And obviously the UK. But, right, you know, it all comes from the House of Lords. So it's just like, but they also rule the bar. You know, in the bar, doesn't matter if it's in Australia or in the United States, then if you're the bar, you are literally like an attorney, or whatever you would call it. They are a British citizen.
Is the House of Lords based in the city of London, or is it in
in Westminster,
UK proper? Is it UK proper, or is Westminster City of London?
You know where it is? I'd have to check to see, because I know where the City of London is. It's only 1.2 square miles. So I don't think, because it's called Westminster or the City of London.
But the Bank of England is in City of London.
It is. Yeah.
And then there's a couple other I mean, it's obviously a bunch of financial institutions. And I think that there's some churches.
The Temple Bar. Yeah.
The Temple Bar.
That's what it's called, the Temple Bar. Whereas where all of the lawyers, attorneys, solicitors all swear and pledge homage to, which is the Temple Bar, right in the middle of the City of London, right? Which is like the original Knights Templar chapel or church, whatever you want to call it.
Are you saying, in your opinion, that anyone who takes the bar exam is making a vow to the City of London?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with, in the United States, there's a guy named Dr. Frederick Graves who has a course called How to Win in Court, or Jurisdictionary, some people call his course. But I interviewed him, and he's a bar attorney. He took the bar exam. Now, he's an older guy. Right. He's old. He's retired. And he actually said in the interview, if you think that I pled loyalty to Queen of England, the crown, or any of that stuff, come say it to my face. Because he doesn't take it very kindly. He says that is bullshit. Now, I'm not saying what you're saying is not true, but this is a guy who went and studied law, passed the bar exam, and is deciding to try to help people and how to navigate in court.
I'm sure I've done his course.
You might have, but he has that. So yeah, it's interesting because he's like, no, I've never, like, I didn't plead loyalty to anything like that to become.
But you must have signed the bar and got a bar card.
Obviously, because I don't think you could practice law unless you do.
Exactly. And where's the bar? What does it mean? The bar. What does it stand for?
I've asked that too. Now, can you prove that it means what you're going to say it means?
But that's where it comes from. It's literally the British Accredited Registry, which is in the centre of London, which comes from, it's called the Inns, INNES, the Inns, right? Not like a pub inn.
Right, INNES, like a Latin word.
Yes, yeah. And that's where all of the lawyers used to train, and you couldn't train anywhere else in the whole of England at the time. And it was all in the City of London around the Temple Bar. And it was like the different inns had all of the different heads. That there was the top judge or solicitor or lawyer or barrister, whatever you want, but they were all judges at the time, and had the different inns, different buildings, all sectioned around. They're gone now, the buildings, but the chapel or the church, the Temple Bar, is still there.
I wonder if any of these attorneys, judges had to sign some sort of NDA that doesn't allow them to disclose that information. Because I've talked to law students. I have where I live here in North Carolina, we have Wake Forest University, and they have a law school. And I've talked to like people, just, you know, guys who don't really know much. They're very, very green. They're trying to learn about law. They're trying to become attorneys. And I can't get a straight answer for this, and I can't even like really fully find that the bar stands for the British Accreditation Registry or whatever. It seemed to just be shortened for barrister. So that's where I'm at. That's where I was telling you, like, when our very first conversation, that I'm an open-minded skeptic. I'm open-minded, but I'm skeptical. And I want to find this information. I want to find what's factual. And even this simple thing of what is the bar. I really can't show factual evidence that proves or disproves what we're saying. Which is weird, because most attorneys just say that it's just like just the association to be like, that's what monitors all the people who are practicing law.
Well, I mean, like I said, it was night school. I did go to night school and studied law in night school. But during that time, at no time did they say, oh, you must swear an allegiance or pretend you're this or whatever. So,
right.
But I know through dealings with property and when I was a mortgage broker and we were dealing with a lot of solicitors or attorneys, whatever you want to call them, even if they were just dealing with your escrow account, you know what I mean? Not like top flying lawyers or anything like that, but like do you not think, like, I mean, and this is just me thinking about how it all fits together, that it's very similar because it's all Masonic anyway, right? There's only a small percentage of the actual practitioners that are ever going to really be in the know of what they're actually signing anyway and what they're becoming a part of anyway.
And that's what makes me really skeptical, because it seems like if you're going to be an attorney, a lawyer, a barrister, that everyone should be privy to the same information so that you can do your job effectively.
But I mean, if you look at the actual system itself, right? I mean, like they're very similar, but in the United States, they make the government make more money off the prison system than they probably do off anything else. So that it's literally, they call slave or slavery, then put them all into slavery. Like all of these people, like I'm not talking about the actual, let's call them convicts. I'm talking about the attorneys and everything like that make all these deals or plead guilty and then we'll make it less. It's still putting them in prison though, instead of saying, did you do it or not? Or can we help you? I mean, that to me is like, they're all serving the system, not
the people.
You.
Yeah. Well, I did interview a guy here in the United States. I'm not sure if you've heard of Sheriff Richard Mack.
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
But I did interview him, and he gets some really interesting perspectives about the power of the sheriff and how government agencies can't supersede their jurisdictional law, and how they are the one what's the word I'm looking for? Your last hope for being able to secure your freedom. I don't even want to use the word liberties, but to secure your freedoms. So it's interesting when you think about that, and I'm not trying to like push at you with this stuff. It's just as much when I try to, and I don't know if you have the same experiences, but when I try to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't know about this, in my head, I feel like I sound like I'm crazy.
Yeah. No,
because I can't sit here and say this. There's some things that like I can explain to somebody, like cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin. Like I can explain to somebody how it's decentralized, how the governments don't have control of it, and I can lay out things very factual, where this I can't. And then there's, like you were saying, maybe not all attorneys, judges know this information. Same thing with law enforcement. They may not know this information. Because even talking to Sheriff Mack, some of the stuff when it came to the legal fiction, he just wasn't in agreement with.
Okay.
He's very much I wouldn't say an expert, but extremely knowledgeable in the Constitution.
Okay. Right. I mean, that's interesting, because I've heard a few things, and I've read about him and saying about the jurisdiction and saying the sheriffs because it's a totally different word in England than it is to the United States about the sheriff. So I don't know what jurisdiction or power that they actually have, you know. And I know the old westerns, and I used to like watching them when I was a kid with John Wayne and all that. But that's about the knowledge I have on how a sheriff has jurisdiction compared to, you know, a police officer or, you know, I mean.
Well, the police officers, in a sense, here in the United States, police officers are really policy enforcers. They're the ones who are kind of ticketing people, making sure that laws aren't being broken, unless the county doesn't have county police, then the sheriffs do that. Now, if in my county we have regular police department and sheriffs, so the sheriffs, they end up a lot of times helping out in the courts, like being the kind of like the guards in the courtrooms to make sure everything's going fine. They're the ones who will take people back and forth from the back to the front and all that. And if you're getting arrested, they'll arrest you, and then they serve paperwork. But in a situation that you'll be familiar with, like with what happened in Waco, Texas years ago with what is his name? David Koresh. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So the federal government came in and took over jurisdiction, and they were the ones who were dealing with the I don't know what you call it, the raid of that compound, that facility. But the local sheriff had to give them permission to do that. He had to give up his power to give them the power, because his power superseded their power, because states are supposed to govern themselves. And when it comes down, everything gets down to from a state and local level. And so in order for the federal government to come into a state area, they have to be given technically permission to take over that jurisdiction. Because it was said with the Waco thing, talking to Richard Mack, is that the county sheriff said that at any point he could just go in there and arrest David Koresh, but he never did. And he ended up, to me, bowing down to the federal government and gave them jurisdiction to come in and do his job, basically, if that makes sense. So your sheriff is supposed to be your last line of defense, even against law enforcement and federal government, because even Sheriff Mack and a couple other sheriffs in the United States, they took a court case to the Supreme Court and won, showing where the federal government was superseding state rights and trying to force sheriffs to do background checks for firearms, because from the constitutional perspective, the sheriff, that's not the sheriff's place. The sheriff is supposed to protect. He even said law enforcement officers, they're all in the United States, they all are basically taking an oath to the Constitution. But the problem is that the law enforcement and maybe even sheriffs are not being trained in constitutional law. They're being trained in case law.
Yeah, which is exactly the same in England. You know, I mean, in here it's slightly different. Like, but in Spain, we were in Spain. Well, I was there for 8 years altogether. But you have what they call like a policía local, which is like literally, it sounds like it, local police.
Yeah,
they would be, I suppose, like the police department, right? And they would do like, stop people for a ticket, you know, that type of thing. And then you had like what the national police, right? The Nacional, and they would be like more like a police force. But above them, you've got 3 police forces, and the last one came from the old Franco days, which was the Guardia Civil. And you just do not mess around with the Guardia Civil. These guys are walking around the streets with huge machine guns, you know.
in Spain?
In Spain. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They do road stops anywhere they want. They stop anywhere. We used to be, I mean, look at me, you know, I mean, I don't look very Spanish, right?
No,
So,
you look so Spanish. You're the epitome of what a Latin individual looks like, Peter.
so like, you know, you're driving through like a country road. I'm going from one end. I was helping friends sometimes. We ran our own gym in Spain, martial arts gym, but I still helped friends doing, I don't know what it was, some kind of like business with like beach buggies for a holiday thing. and I used to take them back and forward for them. And I'm driving a van, and there's massive stop, and they're all standing there with machine guns, and they look for people who look like me, and it's just like they'll drag you out the car, and luckily I'm just like always like, hi, how you doing, and very friendly, and I never had any problem. Just a stop now and again, never a worry, apart from one time, and literally it was like, look, here's a €1,500 fine. For what? Because I said so. And that was, I didn't pay it, I didn't have to do anything, but it was crazy. And I know people who literally got dragged to like money machines, and to take that money out now, like €200, take it out now and give it me, or and they carry machine guns. They are insane.
But, I will say, without having like a discussion about it, I'm very disappointed in the Spanish legal system. Somebody that I interviewed with and kind of loose friends with, who passed away, John McAfee.
Oh, okay.
His body still has not been released from that prison, and it obviously keeps the conspiracy theorist stuff going, with people thinking that he's alive.
Right. Okay. I know what you mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's literally been a year and probably a year and a half now since he's passed away. Right. I think July or August we'll be looking at 2 years, and his body has not been released, which is like to me a human rights violation.
Yeah, I tell you what. I mean, a family member of ours actually died in Spain as well. With no name or any history of he just did, and it took them 6 months to get the body, and that was just
there's a word of advice to you: is don't die in Spain unless you are Spanish and you're from Spain.
Yeah, if you're Spanish, you're fine. If you're not Spanish, don't die in Spain.
No, they won't. That's crazy, man. Okay, let me get back on track here with what we were talking about. So one of the things I noticed with some of your newer videos is there's a lot of information about private and trust. So with claimyourstrawman.com, is this how people would join your private membership association? And is it your private membership association, or how do I put that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the entry point, if you want to call it that. What they'll do is if they join that, they go on to see the further information. We've got loads of free information. I'm going to put a lot more free information up there. And then there's no cost to anything. They go in there, and then they can actually see, and join the mailing list and get loads of good information free again, all from the mailing list about what's going on, what has gone on, a lot of history. I like talking about history, as you know. But it's at least an introduction to what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And they can, if they wanted to, join our ministry. And our ministry, as a PMA, the Private Ministry Association, we live in the private, we stand in the private, we do private business, if you want to call it business. Other people would say commerce. And if you want to make a donation for a knowledge share, then that's what we'll do. For extra, apart from all the free stuff that we do. On the other side, even further advanced, and again, if you join the PMA, we'll give you all this information in there. Literally, look, you join it,
Peter.
Is
it completely free to join your PMA?
To go in and join that level is completely free. Okay. And there's just tons and tons and tons of free information. And if you want to get extra information, then you can go and join the private side of the PMA. All right. So you go into the PMA members area, and you can get an option to actually join the private side. And then you get weekly calls and private calls and tons more information as well. So, there's different levels of it, but you can definitely get in and get a ton of information for free as well.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll have all this link, because it's once you click on one thing, there's so many other little links that come along with these. So once everybody signs up for that email on the main page here at claimyourstrawman.com, you'll be able to look at these helpful books, this information that will take you to the members' options. Here are forms and letters and a video breaking the chains of slavery, and information about how we've been lied to. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to make sure they're taking the time to check out the Law Common to I course that is not Peter's course, but a course he recommends. And then obviously the one that you have with your PMA via claimyourstrawman.com. So are you finding a lot of success with creating a private membership association and utilizing trusts?
Definitely when you're utilizing trusts. And I'm finding it much more now. Everything that I do is in a private trust. Literally, I mean, it's joined together, the PMA and the private trust. Just to give like a little bit of background, the PMA, a Private Members Association, you create this association, but you can only create, well, you can create it with your articles of association and your charter. Your charter is like, some people would call it bylaws. I like to call it laws, right? Your charter and your bylaws and your articles of association, they are assets. That is what creates your entity. And a PMA is a commercial entity that has been around since man was created. All right, these new things, like in England you call it a limited company or an LLC, in the United States or whatever, these are modern things. These are legal things that are created under a legislation.
Right.
But people have been doing commerce well before, they run around in little tunics and whatever they were doing. They were still doing private commerce. And what they would do is they'd make a private agreement. So if I was meeting you, I say, look, you want your roof fixed, I'll come along, we'll make a deal, we'll shake a hand on it or whatever it was, if you wanted to sign paper. But usually you shake a hand, I'll fix that roof, and then you'll, give me a donation.
And that would be a private agreement.
It's a private contract, yeah.
Because, and now your PMAs are also, the word unincorporated association would also be another word for a PMA, PCA, and a PCA is a private contract association, but it's interchangeable, right?
Exactly that. I mean, the thing is, I do know through dealing with, I'm in various groups that have PMAs or they have PEAs, private education associations, where they run schools, again, but it's all in a private, and it's out of the jurisdiction of legislation. You see? So
they say that. Now, one of my big arguments, and I'm not sure how they do this, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but one of my biggest arguments when it comes to this is speakeasies. Are you familiar with the term speakeasy?
Yeah.
So there's been several different speakeasies that I know that have operated as a private membership or private contract association and get shut down by police officers because they say that they're doing something illegal.
Okay.
So a speakeasy a situation would be like, I have a place of business that's not open to the public and I want to serve alcohol. Well, technically, in order to serve alcohol in here, like in where I live, you got to go through a county board. You had to get a liquor license, a license to be able to sell those things, or you're not legally allowed to do so. And any entity that I've seen that has operated in a private capacity, like a speakeasy, like a private bar, has been shut down. Some of them may end up having successes in court, but they've got to deal with the bullshit of having police officers come in and raid and shut down their facility and arrest people in the meantime. Are you is there something that they're doing wrong?
Yeah, well, maybe, right? I can't speak for them because I don't know the instances, but how I would do it, right? Now I've got a friend. Okay, I've got somebody, not a friend, I know him, and he has a bar, okay, or a pub, whatever you want to call it, not far from me, and he tried to keep it open during the lockdown.
Okay, yeah, during the Banana Charlie event.
Yeah, and they took his license off him, but so now he hasn't. Even now, this is what, 2 years after they allowed everyone else to open, they still won't allow him to open. That's just bullying. But anyway, so
what would
yeah,
happen if he did he try to open up privately?
no, because he didn't know me.
Could he do it successfully
I
with
believe
your
so, but you would have
assistance?
to do it how I explain it how to do it. You see, you
Right.
can't sell things. You can't sell things.
Maybe that would have came into a problem is if somebody is selling the liquor.
Yeah, you can't sell it.
Maybe that's where the problem could have came in where but yeah, even in Washington D.C., which is its own kind of unique area because it's not a state,
Mm-hmm.
they made cannabis legal, but you weren't allowed to like have a dispensary and sell it. So there were businesses that would sell a shirt or a sticker or whatever the case might be for what the price of the cannabis would have costed. And then they give them the cannabis as a gift after they buy the shirt that's really expensive.
Yeah.
but then they were able to kind of crack down even on that. So I'm just kind of just giving you some examples of some crazy things that were
So
because it's confusing.
It certainly is, and the thing is with the private legislation, obviously they're always going to try and stop you having privacy because that's what they do, isn't it? Right? But right, you can't turn around and say, I'm going to have this. Let's call it a bar, right? Because what the example you've said, and say it's not open to the public, but you can all come in and then buy this alcohol, right? Because that's not really private. So what you would have to do is you would have to have a private members club or a private members like association. So let's call it a club. You go into the club, you will pay a monthly fee, right? That will give you your
monthly,
monthly
yearly, however you decide to do
or
it.
whatever it would be. Yeah. But then you go in and you shut the doors, and there's no one can walk in without that membership card, right? You can't open it up and advertise, come in, and we're going to have a sing song, we're going to have a dance, we're going to get drunk, right? Or whatever it is, right? But then they can go in, and the benefit of that membership is they can have free alcohol. So if you compare it to, let's just say, somebody having a party at their house. If you have a party at your house, people can come in. They're not going to expect to pay for a drink, are they? They're going to maybe bring their own and give it to the general collective of alcohol and they share it. You know what I mean?
BYOB.
Yeah. So, but, and they would never bat an eyelid. They would say, well, it's a private gathering. It's private. So all they've done is they've advanced that. I mean, I know I've actually done several courses with people who supply courses in the United States that go well deeper into the legislation side, the legal side than what I've just mentioned. But basically, what you're doing is you're doing a private activity and it's by a private contract and you all agree. And only the members could attend a venue, be it a building that you could call a bar, but it's a building with a locked door, right? No public is allowed in and you're not selling anything. You go in and you say, oh, can I have a whiskey? Can I have that? But that's only a membership benefit. You're not going to pay for it.
That makes sense. And I haven't really had anybody say that before. So maybe the sales and charging could have something to do with it because it is an act of commerce.
You can't do it. So the people I was dealing with, just as an offside, they were running a school in New York. Now, I know New York State or whatever, I'm not 100% sure of what, but they said, right, they had kept that school open for children and they were all a faith-based ministry, private educational association, PEA, and they'd stayed open the whole time through all of the nonsense, right? Everyone else got locked down. Everyone else had to go and like sit in the house and, not do anything, not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that. But because they were private, nobody ever even spoke to them because it was all private.
Was that a school for minors or a school for adults?
Yeah, minors.
Okay. So yeah, maybe I had to look into private schools too. Because like around here we have like Masonic lodges, we have veterans associations like the Veterans of Foreign Warfare, like we have a VFW hall here. and it's a private membership association, but they sell alcohol. They do sell it. Now, I was asking them about that, and I never got the, well, if we would just not charge for alcohol, then we wouldn't be under their jurisdiction. It seems like that might be the one thing. Now, also, bringing up trust, when you're dealing with trust, because I've heard a lot of different mixed opinions about people creating their own trust, like trying to study law and doing their own, or using, I don't know what the proper word for it, companies. There's something here in the United States called Weiss and Associates.
Oh yeah.
And I think that you can pay them an X amount for whatever the service is, and they'll set up, I think, a PMA, PCA, or a trust for you. I've heard that people who create trust themselves, those trusts are not lawfully recognized. So I was curious about where the whole idea of the trust thing, because that is something that I've been exploring more, and I find that there's more relevancy to things like private membership associations and going into this element. So did you create your own trust from your own research and knowledge, or how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, just to give you a bit of background on it, then, I mean, just even, was it last week or the week before? Very recently, anyway, within 2 weeks' time, I was in a big meeting with very wealthy, very powerful barristers in London, right? So this office,
London proper or City of London? I got to distinguish here.
well, Bond Street in Mayfair.
I have no
Have you ever played Monopoly? I don't know. You'll have a different version, but
I'm sure. Yeah, we have a US version.
Right. Well, it's Bond Street and Mayfair are the most expensive like streets in the whole of the board of Monopoly.
So it's like Boardwalk on our board.
Right. So like, you know, but like if you imagine one of the most like expensive, poshest hotels in the whole of the world.
I think it's Park Avenue is our expensive area. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Something like that. But it's like, I think you got Bond Street and Mayfair, I think, is in England. But anyway, this was on an office on Bond Street in Mayfair, which is like the Westminster. It probably is actually in the City of London.
Okay.
Because it's in Mayfair, that's the City of London. Sorry, that's in Westminster. That's the City of London. And right opposite Claridge's Hotel. Claridge's Hotel is like the most expensive, ridiculous hotel you've ever met. There's a guy standing out the front. He's got a big top hat on. He's wearing a big red suit. He's opening up the doors of the Rolls Royces, the Bentleys, the Ferraris, and helping people out their cars, and then opens the doors for them to the hotel. This is the type of hotel it is. This is right opposite. Now, these guys like create, I would never mention the name of it. You know, I would, you know, no way would I do that. But they create these trusts for people that are they'll not speak to you unless you're going to give them at least 3 million to invest.
Oh, wow.
All right. So, and that's the starting point. And then they'll actually help you with like offshore companies, private, and it's all private trusts.
Yeah, I think Weiss maybe is like $10,000 to get you set up.
Well, I've also got other ones that'll do it for like, about £6,000. So probably
roughly, somewhere equivalent to that.
Yeah, you know. So, but this is the top end that I first met. I've heard of a while ago, but I got invited, funnily enough, to this one meeting. You know, lovely people, honestly, amazing, like very respectful. Took my coat and like helped it, you know. Millionaires themselves and sitting in this office, and I was like, what the hell am I doing here? You know, it's just talking about all these offshore structures where it goes to this one, and it's all private. And they have smashed every single time any interruption by the IRS or the HMRC or any tax institution that tries to argue with them. They get annihilated. The tax people get annihilated, embarrassed. But it's all in a private. And this is the thing that was amazing to me, because it was like, I've spoken to several other organizations since, right, about the setup that we have, and we use public, limited or LLCs, right, public companies, private companies, but dormant, so they're not trading, right? But they're actually the trustees, and it goes round in circles. Not as complicated or as sophisticated as theirs in any way, but we use these private trusts, and it makes them outside of the jurisdiction. Now, the
are
only
these
thing
just are these like, you're not just creating just a trust? Like, there's different kinds of trusts. What kind of trusts are you talking about?
we create our trusts, we call it a private trust, but it's under the equity, the jurisdiction of equity and natural law.
Is that something written or something that you're just citing?
Well, the thing is, what equity is definitely written. Equity is the chancery law, the law of chancery, which you have in right across any common law jurisdiction that we have, be it United States, United Kingdom, Australia, wherever you want to be, right? They all talk about, even in the United States, they call it the chancery, right? But all it means is an equitable court. In equity is far higher than any jurisdiction that any legal body could try and quote upon you.
Do you want to use like things from the traditional legal system with creating trusts?
Well, the thing is, though, on
like
equity,
there's revocable, irrevocable, there's testamentary, there's funded, there's unfunded, there's different and there's different categories. One that I'm familiar with is charitable remainder trusts, CRT,
okay,
which is like
right.
where you would have your trust set up that at this expiration date of the trust per se, the remainder of that trust would go to a nonprofit or whatever you choose. And it could, like, being that you have a faith-based ministry, you could have your ministry as being the recipient of that.
Yeah.
So you could have a charitable remainder trust set up where you have control of the trust, and the remainder of the trust technically goes back to an entity that you have control of.
Yeah. Or I mean, or a cat's home or a dog's home, or a charitable foundation like that. And a private trust can be exactly the same and have it set up so it all goes. But a private trust, if you set it up in equity, right, cannot be taxed if you know how to talk. Now, again, right, I wouldn't say to somebody, run off and set yourself up your own private trust. Just write it down on a piece of paper. I have a private trust and I've set it up in equity, because any judge that challenged it would say, explain equity. And then if you can't explain equity, they're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, but we're going to charge you tax and you're off to the IRS jail and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So you have to start really studying equity. Now, again, this is going to fly it back to the history now. What is equity? Where does it come from? What is chancery? What is the chancellor? Who is that? Where did it come from? And it's going right the way back to 1140 in King Henry, when they separated the what he called common law, because he wanted to make it common to everyone, because everyone had their own rules in England. So he wanted to unite the rules to make it common, right? And chancery was his Lord Chancellor that started to take over his job because he was too bloody busy. And that's it. It was like, I can't cope with this and I'm sick of it. I'm bored. I want to go and, rob and rape and do all the other things. And you can look after the law stuff. So then the Chancellor was running what they would call the court. Everyone's heard of the King's Court, the Queen's Court. That's what it was. I'm holding court. That's basically what it was. So chancery developed now into a separate part where equity is justice. Common law, like we were talking about it before, like precedent set in the higher courts, that is literally black and white. You did wrong, you did right. If it was wrong, you're going to jail. If it was right, then you're okay. There's no in between. It's black and white. That is common law. All right. Equity is, okay, you broke the law, but why did you do it? Okay, so you broke the law, but
and then how are we going to remedy the situation?
There you go. That's what equity is. You remedy the situation, however it would be on your side or my side,
wherever you guys come to terms. So there's a guy that I know that's not into the legal fiction law stuff at all. He is disabled. He became legally blind, and he wasn't able to, because of him owning property and a few other things, he wasn't able to, and he didn't have a job or anything. So it wasn't like he had an income coming in. He wasn't able to take advantage of any of the benefits that somebody who's disabled would be able to, because of them saying he had too much on paper.
Value. Yeah. Yeah.
So he created, he got with attorneys, because he was trying to do this the right way. He got with like lawyers and created trust. Now I'm not 100% sure of the type of trust, but we were talking a few months ago, and he was telling me that he had to pay taxes, and I'm like, I thought that, without me being an expert in a situation, that putting your stuff in a trust is going to shelter it from those situations. I guess it depends on how you do the trust. I don't know. But what he was saying was his trust paid 37% on capital gains because he sold stuff out of the trust.
Okay.
I don't know if any of that like makes sense. Like, so if you sell something and you have a gain on it, he's paying the capital gains, like he has crypto through his trust, and he'll use a trust account through an exchange, sell it. But then he's saying once he sells it, though, he's responsible for paying taxes. Now he's saying he's not paying as much in taxes if it wasn't in a trust. He's paying less taxes. He says normal is 20% capital gains over 450,000 and 15% up to 150,000. But he said that crypto assets sold equals deposits into checking account, which was making it taxable for capital gains and then deductions based off of selling it. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if any of that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, yeah. And I would look at it in a different way and explain it a different way. So HMRC here just is the IRS. And now all the money collected, you know, when you look at it from, like, say, the creature of Jekyll Island, we know, like, the central bank creation. It's, you know, it's the central bank's a central bank. Federal Reserve notes are Federal Reserve notes, be them a pound note or a dollar. It's the same thing.
It's all
they're
debt.
all the same people. It's the same company. So the Bank of England's not English, and it's not the government. The Federal Reserve, it's not American. It's not the government. It is what it is. So they have their system. So they have their jurisdiction. So when you look at it on the taxation side, HMRC is the same as the IRS. Now, we have had a lot of success with writing to HMRC and closing down all taxation.
Repeat that.
We have had a lot of success on writing to the HMRC, equivalent to the IRS, and closing down taxation. Because, and it's the same, we'll just say that anybody, even in the United States, find us a law that says a man or a woman has to pay tax.
That is definitely an area that I'm digging into as well. I've had to reschedule, but there's a lady named Sherry Peel Jackson, who's a former IRS agent. She has spoken out publicly, and she, I think she ended up going to prison. And this is somebody who worked for the IRS. And then there's another former IRS agent who I'm trying to get in touch of. I think his name is Steve Bannister, if I'm saying it right. And he wrote a book. He is a former special agent, and he actually, kind of exposed this to his supervisors. And then once he wasn't able to get any headway from that, he stepped down from his position and then wrote these books and tries to educate the public. And I think he's the only former IRS agent who hasn't been to prison.
So the woman, did you say she was called Sherry?
Sherry Peel Jackson.
And has she actually done a tour of the United States, going around and speaking in the United States?
She's spoken at events. She's done conferences and stuff like that. She recently spoke at, kind of tying it together, G. Edward Griffin, the author of Creature from Jekyll Island. He's got a thing he does called the Red Pill Expo. He does a couple times a year. And the most recent one, a few months ago in Utah, she spoke at that along with Sheriff Mack. I wasn't able to attend, but that's where someone who was there got Sheriff Mack's information for me. And then I reached out to Sherry. Sherry agreed to do the interview, and we just had to reschedule the time that we had it set.
Yeah, I know exactly who you mean. And you know, there's nobody in the UK like that. And if you actually speak to them on the phone, they get very aggressive. You know, like just explain a law and they get really aggressive.
Right.
But right, we write to them and we're very plain, and it's just like we describe, I am Anne, and if it was me, all right, I am Anne Peter, or the Peter Wilson estate. And it's definitely separate because the estate is the person. And they know this, right? But they don't want to go and tell everyone. And what happens is, what we find on this small scale, and it's still small scale, you know, when we deal with it and we talk to them, they don't really want to argue about it because they don't want everyone else talking about it. So they went, yes, we agree. And I've got the letters, and we've got several people with the same. They've got the letter, yes, we agree. No tax payable. Thank you. End of story.
I like that.
You know, you're not going to shout about it.
No, because maybe that, and I can't say that was Sherry Peel Jackson's problem. I have to look into her case and find out what the specifics were, and then look at the case with this Bannister guy and see where the successes lied and where the failures lie, and what may be the problem, where may be the disconnect. Because there's also a channel, it's called Freedom Law School. You may have come across it. There's a guy named Payman. I can't pronounce his last name. I've been trying to get in touch with him to do an interview because he's covered both of these. He talks about the same idea that taxation of labor, there's nothing in law saying that you have to pay taxes. It's, a lot of people say it's voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't really seen too many people successfully walk away from the IRS clean. They end up getting in trouble, whether it's paying fines, paying back money, or going to jail. So this is obviously, I think all this stuff kind of interconnects. You know, once you can find certain areas that you are sovereign, I guess would be a good word to use, where you're sovereign, where you can show that the IRS cannot touch me. I've done this. But then I'm sure that if I was to dedicate my channel to making sure everybody knows about that every day, somehow it's going to create more problems for me.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I was trying, you know, several people that I know that were on the verge. Dime Bartley, you know, like we were speaking about before, can probably confirm this, you know, that were on the verge of like breakthroughs of major proportions on things that could have had, trying to think of how to put it, you know, and they've disappeared, these people.
Yeah.
Or they've died suddenly, you know.
Yeah. So I think, what was it? There was a guy who back in the late 90s, I think he, as a journalist, was exposing information about what we call Project Bluebeam. And he ended up in prison, and he ended up dead. Yeah, I feel like if you're out here on YouTube making videos, that you're not really a threat to too many people. And I'm starting to think that a little bit more and more. Nothing against me or you, but it's like, if they're going to allow us to do what we're doing, is there, you know, that's where I'm trying to talk with people directly and find where people are having successes and where they're finding the failures. Because like I told you before, I feel like a lot of the information that is out for the general public to study this, there's a lot of controlled opposition with a lot of controlled mis and disinformation to keep people off the trail of truth, when it should be fucking simple, dude. It should be like a really simple thing, but it's just, we have overcomplicated this, and I'm trying to uncomplicate the fuckery.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, if you look at it, and like I know you've we've spoke privately, and you've gone through stuff, and I'm still going through stuff now. There's, you know what I mean? There's like, it's craziness. As soon as you say one thing, right, you get like, it's like wasps flying in and stinging you, like what's going on? It's like, no, that's wrong, and it's like all this different information. You think, why are you being like that? And a lot of it to me is just looking, it's like the people that would probably like far more better known than I am, right? Probably are not the same people you should be listening to, because they are saying things that are being paid to say it to make sure that you're not finding out what you're supposed to find out, right? If that makes sense.
No, it does. And it wouldn't even surprise me if someone was, let's say, a generic individual who's teaching information about law has found the key out of the matrix, but in doing so, make some sort of agreement that he's not going to share that he found the key out of the matrix.
Yeah. Or like, if you do try and share it, then you're not going to be here very long. So, it's going to be another, like, it's a coincidence, a coincidental death.
That guy just like, coincidentally died.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was suddenly and unexpected, and we don't know the cause.
But and the thing is, like, right now, the way things are going, like Janine, she's just downstairs. 2 people in her life, like, who she's been associated with through childhood. She's only, I'm not going to say her age, but she's young. She'll slap me. But, they just.
Your wife?
Oh. Yeah.
You got a young one?
Yeah. Much younger than me. And
make sure she can take care of you when you get older.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
And boom, they just don't. They're gone. Just nothing wrong with them all of a sudden, and then carries on, going.
There's a lot more of that. All right, man. Now, before we started recording, I told you that I wanted to go back and listen to the first 2 interviews that we did, and then invite you back on so that we can kind of continue those conversations. But to wrap up, to kind of go towards the end of today's conversation, I did mention that I wanted to talk about this Bank of International Settlements stuff that you were talking about with the City of London, the Bretton Woods Agreement. You even mentioned cryptocurrency. What do you want to share in regards to this? Where are we going to take this conversation?
Well, the thing is, like, I've been doing a lot of research, basically for myself as well, looking, thinking, what's going on, because there's something big coming along, and it's going to happen. And a lot of interviews that I've done with other people as well, and I was speaking with people in massive investment bodies that were talking about bail-ins 2-3 years ago, actually before we even spoke. Bail-ins, and I'd never heard the term bail-ins, right? But a bail-in compared to a bailout. Right.
Well, most people are familiar with the bailouts. We talked about 2007, 2008, the financial crash. The banks were bailed out. The governments came in and helped the banks. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that this time. Now they're going to do bail-ins, which means that the customers of the banks, the people utilizing the banks, are going to bail out the banks, and you're going to lose your funds. Because I was watching something recently, Peter, about the FDIC insurance and stuff like that, which I think covers something like $30 billion, maybe. I don't know exact figures, but I'm giving you a roundabouts. And it said that the banks have something like trillions of dollars. So it's like 1.6% of the money would be covered under FDIC. But at that point, the FDIC would go bankrupt, which would bankrupt the United States government, which would destroy the government. So, and then I don't know if you've seen recently here in the United States, the FDIC, the people who are supposed to be insuring the banks, are talking about the system collapsing and bail-ins and bank runs, and not warning the general public, because they'll react in fear and it will just escalate the downfall that much quicker. Have you seen that by chance?
Yeah. And now just talk about like the bail-ins and the bailouts, right? 2007, 2008 that you were talking about. See, when we lost everything, and on there's a bank here called the Northern, or was a bank here called the Northern Rock. Now they did a bail-in, the Northern Rock Bank here in
They took the
England.
customer's money.
They took the customer's money. So and it's the banks that were where I live. So we were seeing them queuing up outside the bank, right? The police were there to stop people getting into the bank, and they were all wanting to take the money out, and the bank took everything.
I think it was Iran or Iraq where something similar recently has been happening, and the people were actually robbing the banks. The police weren't able to help stop that.
But in 2012, they actually did it to the whole island of Cyprus. They bailed in the whole island. So they did it here in 2007, just a little small test of it. I mean, the bank was like it's a northern bank from the north of England where I live, but it went down south. But
they're closed. They're closed now, right? That bail-in
disappeared.
That bail-in didn't keep them running.
No,
they just took the money and ran.
Took the money and ran, disappeared.
So, side note: if you deposit money into a bank and you think that you have a bank account, all you're doing is giving your money to the bank to use.
Yeah, exactly. Every deposit is literally giving your money away to the bank. They now own. Well, it's not money anyway, but they own it. But and then they did it in Cyprus, and now they've been talking about it. And I had a couple of interviews, private interviews with these people, and they were saying that they've got the actual memos from the central bank, which is the Bank of England here, saying get ready for the bail-in. And they've been practicing and getting ready for the bail-in, and we never know. We don't. Nobody can tell me or anybody else when this is going to happen, but I do think that it's going to happen. It's not going to be 20 years time. It's going to be quite soon.
Well, I know the UK is talking about introducing a central bank digital currency, just like all the other nations.
Done it.
Right.
They've already done it. They've announced it last week.
If the Bank of England has a CBDC, and everybody has a Bank of England account, sort of like we would here in the United States with the Federal Reserve, why do you need all these other small banks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've already done it. They've launched.
So I think that will be that when we see the bail-in take place, like the real bail-in, like globally, is when you're going to see a consolidation of power in the banking system.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Where it's getting rid of all the small banks, and it's going to be basically your national central bank will be the buyer and lender of last resorts.
All of these banks that you think of as a bank will just literally overnight disappear. So you're not going to go down the street down there and say, knock on the door and I want to come in and deposit a check, or I want to come in and take some money out. That's not going to be there.
Now here, I'm curious if you have the same situation where you're at. Is there are lots of banks closing up their branches, minimizing how many branches they have, and utilizing and relying more upon the electronic ATM systems?
Well, a little bit more than that. The banks are shutting down the branches all over, so there's literally no buildings. Now, the ATM systems, now we see a lot of them when you walk up and put your card in the ATM system, the first thing that it comes up is this will be closing within 6 months.
On every single one?
Not every single one, but there's a lot of them.
The majority.
From different banks, yeah.
Wow.
So we're trying to drop cash. That's what they're trying to do.
They're not saying what's going to be replacing it. Like,
but
we're going to go all mobile app. It's going to be 100% digital and all mobile.
Yeah, it's not saying that, but it's like, but they're already like, they've got the digital pound. They've already told you point blank, there is a digital pound already.
There's technically been digital everything for a while, but whether it's not technically programmable currency like a CBDC would be.
Yeah, they're not saying that, but they've launched it and said we have a digital pound already from the Bank of England.
What do you think about your new prime minister? He seems to be pro crypto.
Well, he was the first one when he was actually the I can't even remember what they call him now, but he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. That's what they call it. He was the guy in charge of the Bank of England, not the Bank of England, but in charge of the money, the treasury, right?
Okay.
And he was the one that announced we are going to move into CBDCs. That's the first guy I've ever heard, like in the government, they use that term, CBDCs, and that was him. And that was in 2019, I think.
Wow. That's
So now
crazy.
he's the prime minister.
Okay, so to get back to this Bank of International Settlements in the City of London, you're saying the City of London basically I'm thinking basically what you're saying is City of London would be kind of like your central bank to the central banks?
Well, you know, like the Bank of International Settlements is in Basel, Switzerland. That is the central bank of the central banks, isn't it? That's the kind of what everybody would see. Well, that's what the financial people would see as running the banking system.
Right, but it seems like the City of London still controls all that regardless of where something is located.
Oh, 100%. The City of London has been running things since way, way, way before even, well, you know, I think at least one time that was spoke about 1066 when we had the Norman invasion, like William, and when he come across from Norway, supported by the Pope, sent him over with the flags and the rings from the Pope and the seal from the Pope, and he destroyed everything. And he actually gave a piece of paper to the City of London, the city, right, to make sure that it was always preserved. And they still got that bit of paper. It's about this big.
Now, was the City of London created after during 1666 we had London basically was burning, right?
The Great Fire of London, yeah.
And then out of that Great Fire, they were able to build the City of London.
No, the City of London has been created way, way, way before that. It's all tied in with the Vatican. That's why, right? This is going totally out, but you know, Pope Alexander II, right? You'll if people are watching this, they'll hear it from the last video, right?
Yeah, because that's one thing. The knowledge of history that you have, even from like the Catholic end, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so like, he was the Pope that sent William, right, over to England to claim the throne back because the Cabal had lost the throne to a Saxon, right, which was Harold Godwinson, right? So he wasn't of that bloodline. They were like, oh, fuck me, come on, you know, what's happened here? So it was promised to William because he was of the bloodline. So then the Pope got all of them people that were all they weren't just Normans. It was like all of the what do you call them? All of the soldiers anyway to move over to their mercenaries to go over there and destroy England, take over England, and put William in charge, right? And he slaughtered everything. I mean, just moved up north and got to London, surrounded London, and protected it. And he's given them a slip. You can find it online, and it's like, try to think what it's called. It's like it's only about this big, what's left of it now, but they've still got it in the City of London from 1067, I think. 1066 he invaded. 1067 he presented them, right, with this. I can't remember what it's called. What is it called? Oh, it was called the William Charter, and it was a charter of he will leave London as it is. He will protect London. Okay. And it's still, I mean, it was probably a massive document, but they got a tiny slip of it. You can find it online and go and see. Go to London, go to the City of London, which is its own country. It's a city state. It's not English.
Well, it's not not a country, but it's a sovereign territory.
Yeah, it's a sovereign territory. It's literally it is its own country. You know, the Queen can't. Well, she's dead. The King can't go in there without permission. You know, because it's not his. It's not English. You know, it's the City of London, and it's a corporation as well. It's the Crown Corporation,
which is where the Crown Temple comes into play.
Yeah, exactly. So, and
you know, it's when I first started hearing about, like, when I started studying this stuff and started hearing about Crown Incorporated, it's like one of the most confusing things, because since the UK has a monarch, it makes you think that you're talking about the crown of the king or queen.
Yeah, it makes you think you're talking about the Queen. Oh, right. Oh, the Crown is the Queen, but it's not. It's the Crown Corporation, which is the City of London. Right now,
And the
don't
city,
get me.
and they say City of London works in coordination in conjunction with the Vatican and in the United States via Washington D.C.
Them three, they're the three
You have
centers of power.
your I don't know if you want to call it religious arm, your monetary arm, and then your military arm.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. So the way, obviously, the City of London is controlling everything financial, and everybody, they even say it. They even say, "Oh yeah, the financial world is around London." But it ties in with the Bank of International Settlements, right? Which the Bank of International Settlements, if you think about it, like going way back to 1944, right, which is when they established it, right, which was the Bretton Woods Agreement in
Was the bank
1944.
you're saying the Bank of International Settlements was formed around the same time as the Bretton Woods Agreement?
That's when they actually created it, right?
Well,
So that they could actually control
it
through
was
the Bretton
founded.
Woods Agreement.
It was founded in 1930, and I don't think Bretton Woods took place until like the 40s.
1944 Bretton Woods Agreement.
Yeah. Okay,
But it was set up designed up to control all of the finance through the Bretton Woods Agreement.
Another thing I'm thinking of too, like while we were having this conversation, so the Bank of International Settlements is in Basel, Switzerland. Basel.
Yeah, whatever.
The Vatican, do they not have Swiss guards?
Yeah, because it's from Swiss. Yeah, it's the Swiss guards guard the Vatican.
Which is interesting when you think about the Bank of International Settlements being in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And the connection between the City of London and Vatican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, though, right? So, all right. So they've got that set up there, like in 1944. Now, when they set the Bretton Woods Agreement up, which you'll know, so they actually set up the US dollar as the Federal Reserve,
the world reserve currency.
The world reserve currency.
So all fiat currencies or all currencies in the world are judged against the dollar. And then a lot of trade takes place in a dollar. Then the 70s agreement with Saudi Arabia for the petrodollar, which is all starting to come to a crumble now.
Exactly. This is the whole thing. So, right, back in 1944, what they done was they actually said, look, give us your gold, right? So that's why people know at least when I was a kid, everybody knew what Fort Knox was, right? So they had took the gold. It wasn't actually there, but it was in the UK and the US. Because they're the same. There's no difference between them. But anyway, so they had tied the US dollar, right, to gold, and it was connected to gold, right? So everybody had given the gold. I can't remember. Was it $32 per ounce?
It was like right over. Well, originally it was right over 20. When they did in the United States, when they did the gold confiscation was like 1933, I think. Where they made all the U.S. citizens sell their gold, and it was right over $20 an ounce, and then as soon as it was all confiscated, then they raised the price to just a little bit over 35.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, 34, 35 is
still like a 75% increase.
Yeah, so when they got they said everyone's going to do the reserve currency, so now an ounce of gold is tied to whatever price it was, $32, $35. Right, was for there. So they were saying now the dollar was backed by gold. So now, for instance, the UK pound, the British pound, was backed by the US dollar. But the US dollar was backed by gold. So in a way, we were all backed by gold. And so was all of the 220 different currencies, or over 200 currencies anyway, on the Bretton Woods Agreement were all tied to the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Where they were just trying to have it as an exchange currency. But then in 1971, they actually broke it away from the gold standard.
That's when Richard Nixon officially ended the Nixon shock, ended the gold, any gold backing. And then I think it kind of escalated when you had some countries come into the United States wanting to collect their gold. I think France was one of the countries that was brought a ship over, and they're like, yeah, we want our gold. They never got it.
Well, but since 2018, they've all been getting it.
Oh, they've been the nations and banks have been hoarding gold like a mofo. I've been talking about that, even though we see the launch of central bank digital currencies, and it may be because people are going to lose such faith in the system that if they don't start backing it with something, that people are just going to completely lose faith in the system, that they're, because it's there.
So we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know what they have done. So like these banks now, in 1971, like they got rid of like sort of like the gold standard. So and it kind of like that escalated pure fiat currency, and all they've been doing is been printing money like mad ever since. It's like literally the biggest Ponzi scheme you can ever imagine. And then with the old Charlie regime, like what they did, I think they did it everywhere, but in England, right, for sure, right, they told everybody, like, look, stay at home, get yourself a hot tub, get yourself some beers and wine, stay and get drunk all day, and we'll pay you, right? We'll keep paying you. Don't worry about it. You don't have to go to work.
Suck the government tit.
Yeah, exactly. So like pour more money into this massive bottomless pit, the Ponzi scheme. So it's quantitative easing. Okay. So what do you do with quantitative easing? Everyone's saying, well, how does inflation work? Well, what you do is you stop everybody being productive and you pour tons of money into it. So now, it's not the fact that everything's more expensive. It's the fact that there's so much supply of these things called Federal Reserve notes that they're not going to buy as much as what they used to do because there's too many of them. That's all it is. That's inflation. That's a layman's explanation of inflation.
I call it the hidden tax, but yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
When you have X amount of money in the system and X amount of money is worth X, and then you put more of those X's into the pile of X's, it makes all the X's worth less than they were before because you're adding to the pile.
So, but the thing is though, right, that when all this is going on, right, the Bank of International Settlements has always said that the US dollar is the only reserve asset. And is it called an asset? I think they call it an asset. Not currency, it's a reserve asset, was being the US dollar.
Okay.
Until 2019, I think.
Well, it has. I mean, there's nothing that's been officially done to undo the Bretton Woods Agreement. It's speculative that the dollar is losing its traction. I mean, when we're raising our interest rates, what we're doing to other countries is devaluing their currencies further. Like the problems that occurred in the UK with the British pound several months ago was a direct correlation of the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. I mean, that's why you had the International Monetary Fund has come out trying to warn the Federal Reserve months ago to stop raising interest rates, because I feel like the United States is going to make a lot of enemies by keeping the dollar strong.
But in April 2019, though, right, the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, whatever you want to call it, in Switzerland, they actually announced that they were going to have gold, right, as well as the US dollar was going to be the reserve asset, so that people could literally have gold as a reserve asset as well. It was literally now, again, what that means is it's literally classed as money again. Whereas like before you weren't even allowed to call it money. But April 2019.
Which is really, that's one of the few things that you can call money when you know the definition of money and the difference between currency.
Well, it is. So they when they've done that, right, and they've announced that now they're going to class gold as an asset, which they only ever classed the dollar as an asset before, a reserve asset, right, which was what the reserves are kept in dollars. But the next thing, right, you're talking about a global massive breakdown here. I don't know if you've known of the BRICS nations. You must know of the BRICS nations, right, which is literally, it is a war, no matter how you might class it. It's literally a war.
It's an economic war.
Yeah, exactly. But mind you, they're starting to throw some bombs out, aren't they, as well now? Because Russia's part of it.
So BRICS nation, for people that are unfamiliar, BRICS is it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, but now they're calling it BRICS Plus because there's other nations that want to be a part of it. And they're creating their own reserve currency that's kind of mimicking the IMF's SDR, special drawing rights, which is made up of a basket of different fiat currencies. But in this particular instance, it would only be BRICS nations. The BRICS nations are accumulating shit tons of gold, and it's even speculative because I think the ruble is now backed by gold.
Yeah.
So it's
you got they call it the digital. I don't know how to pronounce it. Yuan, right?
Yeah.
Backed by gold, they say.
So yeah, that's what the BRICS nation banks are trying. In a sense, they're trying to bring their currency back to sound money.
Yeah. To literally fight against the
monopoly system of money.
Yeah.
I ordered some Monopoly bills so I can do this in person, but holding up a Monopoly bill and $1 and you put them by each other, and you could say to somebody, the only difference between these two pieces of paper is that you think one actually has value over the other.
Yeah. Yeah. But on top of that, though, I scratch my back. You've got like the foundation of like the Chinese Belt Road and Rail Initiative, right? Which like they launched in 2020, which is linking all of those nations up through railroad and maritime. Literally, you're looking at like what you call like
a modern Silk Road. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah. Which is like literally patrolled purely by commercial vehicles and military. So you're linking up like literally 75% of the world's population, as they might tell us, the world's population.
I've looked at the BRICS nation bank. I think makes up roughly 33% of the GDP of the world.
Yeah, it depends, but yeah, anywhere between 33 to 45% depends on who you want to listen to.
Okay, but it's still it's very significant, and obviously people don't realize how much of an effect this can have on our economy here in the United States.
But literally, what it's doing, though, right? They're linking this as a global network to go against. I mean, when we say it, the US, the UK, it's the same people. They're going against the West. They're going to try the best to crush the petrodollar, really, because you're seeing a lot now of the oil oil supplying nations are actually joining BRICS. Which is the reason why I'm talking about this is because like I'm trying to tell people, look, you've got to start preparing for something major that's happening. This isn't happening by coincidence. This is not happening, and you can sit at home, having a cup of coffee and thinking, I'll be all right. I've got 10 grand sitting in the bank. I've got some cash underneath me mattress, because
now you need to have some gold and silver under your mattress, and maybe some cryptocurrencies for the future.
100%. Gold and silver, I've been telling people for years, like, get into gold and silver. Don't worry about like money. Like, don't put anything in a bank, right? Get gold and don't get gold and silver certificates. Get gold and silver,
real gold and silver that you can hold.
Yeah. I'm not saying put it under your mattress and tell your parents or tell your friends where you've got it. I'm not saying that.
But right? You can hide it in a good place where people won't find it.
Exactly. Go in the forest and got a big X on top of it.
Yeah, dig a hole and get you a big old coffee can and bury it.
Yeah.
That's what people used to do.
Gold and silver, but definitely on cryptocurrency, because I don't know enough about it. I'm not that, that's why I want to talk more to you and find more about it, because I've got friends who have made a lot of money and they're helping me and teaching me, and I am learning, and it's a big learning curve, but I tell everybody, if you've got a chance to do it, then start learning about it, because no matter what you feel, and I've got all the people that are talking about, I'm scared of it, I'm terrified of it. The world is going to change. It doesn't, I don't care. I'm not into this like white hat, black hat theory and like, all these. I don't believe any of that. But I know doesn't matter who actually ends up being the winners. Right, it's gonna go along a digital way. It just is what it is.
It's crazy you said that. So we're recording this on the 17th of February, and I'm going to release it early next week after I get the repost of interview 1 and 2 coming out. But last night I put out a video that said, it's called "You Have Been Warned About Central Bank Digital Currencies." And I say that exact same thing, is that we are going to go into we're being pushed into a digital age. You're not going to be able to avoid it.
No.
You're not going to be able to avoid a digital ID. You're not going to be able to avoid a CBDC, none of these things. But what you can do, one, is prepare for these things. And two, and it's frustrating to even say that I'm suggesting this, but get involved in politics. If it means writing to your representatives, who, like in the United States, your Senate, your congressional representatives that are supposed to be representing your vote, you got to make your voice heard. And we need to shape the legislation in a positive way for the way that these central bank digital currencies are being issued and created, so that it doesn't give banks and governments that much more control. Because if we don't do anything to fight it, then we're going to get a CBDC in every nation that's going to be attached to a social credit score, to your carbon footprint, and it's going to, and that central bank digital currency, whatever they want to call it, whether they want to use a stable coin, Britcoin, whatever, it's all programmable currency. And if it's attached to a social credit score and a carbon footprint and all these different things, then you must be a good citizen or you're going to be cut off.
Yeah.
You know, maybe at first, first strike, you're not going to let you go out and buy cheeseburgers and ice cream. Second strike, you may not even be allowed to go into any public facilities.
Yeah.
So you could, your ID, because of your social credit score and you not listening to what the government is telling you.
Yeah.
People need to realize what's coming. So, in addition to like preparing for it on a financial end, like with things like gold and silver and precious metals and cryptos and bartering items, make your fucking voice heard to your politicians, because the politicians are the ones going to be shaping this legislation, and it's happening. And if you look at the World Economic Forum and all these other things, the thing is, and I'll use the United States as an example, everything that goes on is because of the consent of the people. When the people stop fucking consenting, then these things won't go on. So maybe people need to stop consenting and tell your governments what they need to do, because they're being put into that position by you. Technically, without getting into all the details about some of the fraudulent activities and people being pushed into places of power and all this bullshit. But you get what I'm saying. If we're just going to sit here quietly and just wait for the CBDC to come, then just like read and study George Orwell's 1984, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and just get used to it. And welcome to 1984. Otherwise, fight back.
Talking about what you've just said about
one more thing. Hold that thought. For the people that are skeptical about Bitcoin, when you have a programmable currency and a CBDC that's tied to a social credit score and a carbon footprint that's controlled by governments and banks, you will appreciate what Bitcoin was created for.
Yeah, exactly.
Bitcoin
blockchain
specifically.
Technology. That's what they need to start educating themselves as, blockchain technology. All right. And try to, there is going to be, well, fingers crossed, there's always a way out. There is always a way out, right? We were talking about speakeasies before. Janine's uncle back in the day, in the 20s, he moved from UK, England to America, and he ran a speakeasy, right? He did. We were like going on the ancestry thing, and checking all that out. But anyway, there will be ways of being able to not be 100% control. It's always been the same. There's always something that you can do. That's why you need to learn on blockchain technology. But just talking about that, what you've just said about it being programmable on facial recognition, right? Today, right, I went to the supermarket, right? And I went in, and I picked up a bag. You go in and you try to do, you go to your own till now, and you do it yourself. You don't have somebody doing it for you anymore.
Self-checkout, right? You mean?
Yeah, there's like, there's like 2 checkouts, 300 people waiting, and then you go and do it yourself. So I always get a bag, and I put the bag over it, so like the camera, because there's a big screen, you can see yourself, and they're filming you.
All right.
So I put the bag over it so the camera can't work. right? So I did all the checkout and I got a, and I'm just about to leave. I pressed the button. So because I had like got some over 18 articles on there, you have to wait to the woman to tell you that you're over the age that you're allowed to buy the alcohol or whatever it is. And she rips the bag off really aggressively. This silly old woman. I'm like, what? I went, hang on, that's my bag. I want to put my stuff in that bag. And she went, have you paid for it? Have you scanned it? I went, well, yeah. Really silly, crazy woman. She went, threw it at me. It was like, bloody hell. So anyway, I put my stuff in the bag. And I just thought, normally what I do is I get the receipt, I scrumble it, I throw it in the bin, and I walk out. And I thought there's something funny going on here. So like I kept the receipts. I put the stuff in this little trolley. I'm walking to my car, walking to the door, and I've got the receipt up like that, walking, pushing it, not paying any attention, but looking. And I can see these two security guards, great big fat bastards, like, obese, hideous.
Get in my belly.
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking? Like, if I ran away, you'd be dead before you got to the car park anyway. So fuck you. But anyway, so he walks up and stops. The sun blacks out. This big fat bastard, and he went, "Don't put that bag on the camera again." On what? He said, "Don't put that bag on the camera again. That's to film you." I went, "That's my data you're taking without my permission." And he went, "No, you're not allowed to do that." I went, "So do you have your GDPR license?" That would be a protection license in America. I don't know what the equivalent would be. General data protection regulations in Europe anyway.
Okay.
You're not allowed to take data without consent.
Right.
Okay. So, and I've got a list of them, under Section 6, you're not allowed without my consent. Under Section 4, you're not allowed to do it without having it posted up everywhere. I could blast them to death.
Pay attention to that law though, and see if there's going to be any legislation that's going to try to undo or change that. And the reason I bring that up is because we're talking about CBDCs. We're talking about your awesome prime minister, and I think he said that we're not planning on getting rid of physical cash. We're just going to add the CBDC to complement the system.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm thinking. In between them trying to obsolete cash with socials, with having camera facial recognition, where they're collecting data on you, like you were saying. So if you were to use a CBDC, all your information is very transparent. They've got it all right there. But if you go to that same store and you purchase with cash, does that mean that your information is not going to be recorded? But if they have facial recognition, it doesn't matter if you're paying with cash or doesn't matter if you're paying with a CBDC. They know it's you, and they're going to put that information in your data profile regardless. So I would pay attention to the legislation and laws that are happening when it comes to that.
Yeah. So there's a couple of big court cases that I checked up on today anyway, because I'm going to go and make a claim. I'm going to put a complaint into the government that complains for it's called the ICO, Information Commissioner's Office, about GDPR break. You broke GDPR, and there's a few supermarkets, like shops around the country that are already in trouble, getting sued. But the thing is, 90% of people are going, "Oh yeah, but it makes it safe." Doesn't make it fucking safe at all. What they're doing, like, what really, like, that fat idiot's going to try and chase me in the car park for shoplifting. It's like, what they're doing is they're collecting more and more data. Data and information is the oil and the gold of like
data. Yeah, data is the new oil, the new petrol, 100%.
Yeah. And they're collecting it all and they're selling it, and and what they're doing is they're making it for you to stop. So it was quite funny. I just went, well, he said, this guy went, well, if you don't like it, this great big fat beast of a thing, he went, well, don't come back in here. It's like, oh, so funny,
So private businesses aren't protected. Like they don't, because like here in the United States, they're saying that companies like Google and YouTube are not bound by the First Amendment because they're private corporations. It doesn't make sense, but I didn't know if like maybe as a business, maybe like that law you're saying is more for like a general public thing.
I don't
but
know. Like,
but
I
like, do
know
the
that.
businesses have permission to because you have a choice to to utilize that business and their services. You can
I know
go
what you're
to another
saying.
location. So does because it's technically not in the public? I don't know.
I know
That's
what you're
what.
saying, but there is a few supermarkets, big supermarkets, like Asda is where I was today, and that's owned by Walmart, or it
What's it
was
called?
Walmart.
No, what'd you say the name before that?
Asda,
Asda is the name of a store.
yeah, ASDA, big one in England.
So
Yeah,
that's kind of like the Walmart equivalent in England.
yeah. I mean, it's owned by Walmart, or
You
at
don't
least it
have
was.
Walmarts in England?
No,
Okay. I'll
Asda
just
instead.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I would like to do is offer my services to you. I mean, this is your third time giving me time, and I've already asked for a fourth time. So if I can offer in exchange my services. So if you want to do something for your community, for the PMA or something like that in regards to cryptocurrency, like an ask me anything, whatever you want to do, I will do my best to answer all those questions as I humanly possibly can.
I'd love that. I would get you on and do like a show, and I could like announce it to everyone so they could come on and do questions and stuff like that. I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
You know?
we'll set it up. I mean, that's the least I can do for you taking the time to come on my show, because the first two conversations were both 2 hours. Right now, we're sitting right under 2 hours. So I've gotten on camera at 6 hours of your time. So yeah, it's the least I can do, and I'm probably going to get another 2 more hours from you in a couple more weeks. So
Yeah, that would be beautiful, man. I'd
yeah, we'll
love
set it
that.
up. We'll set it up. I would love to offer that, to you and your community and try to help answer questions, because I do find there's dualities in everything, Peter.
Yeah.
So with cryptocurrency, I mean, there are some things about cryptocurrency that aren't great, but there's some things about cryptocurrency that are amazing. So it's
Hmm.
really getting yourself about the benefits and the differences on what these projects are, what the technologies are, and even comparing that to what's being introduced, like with the central bank digital currencies.
Yeah,
'Cause-
that would be fantastic. Because I mean, if nothing else, I'm always honest, and I just say, look, I can tell you little bits about it, but I don't know. I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to educate myself to make sure that I don't end up on the shitty end of the stick of like being stuck with CBDCs and a universal credit system where I'm going to be like, trapped in 15-minute cities that they're introducing already in the UK. So, but
Yeah, I think you
that's all I
guys are
can
one of
tell
the
them.
few nations where they're testing out the 15-minute cities,
Yeah,
which is
it's
basically the
insane.
idea that you don't need to leave your city.
Yeah,
Like
and
we're
that
gonna we're
worked.
gonna we're gonna put everything that you need in this little area, and you don't need to leave it. And everybody's gonna stay in their little bubbles.
But if you try to leave it, you get fined.
Well, yeah,
No,
so now if we have that with a CBDC and a social credit score, they can automatically take that fine and then not allow you to purchase anything in the meantime.
but also the coin that you would take or your cryptocurrency wouldn't work with outside of that 15-minute zone anyway. So it's like it's literally you couldn't make this shit up.
Now
This is
be
the
able to
Hunger
do that,
Games.
but they would not be able to do that with Bitcoin, and I'll say Bitcoin specifically. So with Bitcoin, they wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't be able to
Well,
prevent somebody from not using something within a certain geographical location, because Bitcoin was not programmed like that. Whereas a CBDC being programmable currency, they can program that in.
that is exactly why we need to learn more about blockchain technology, and why it would be brilliant for you to come on and answer questions, because I can tell them little bits of, because I don't know enough.
Right.
I know some things that can hopefully help me, but I certainly don't know. If someone asked me a question, like, I would be like, oh
Well, yeah,
no, but that would be
I would love to
fantastic.
offer it to you. And to wrap it up, the last thing that I kind of try to tell people is that gold and silver have proven themselves throughout history as being a store of wealth, a way to keep what you have. So if you have $10,000 in the bank in 2020 and you kept that $20,000 in the bank till today, you would lose purchasing power over that time period. You would have been able to buy more before you put it in the bank, because the money would have been worth more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So having your money, your wealth, your savings, and something like gold and silver is present preservation, preserving what you have so you don't lose what you have, because the system is designed to keep chopping off what you have. I mean, at the very minimum, 2% a year you're losing. It's very, very minimum. But you look at what's going on, it's more. Now, cryptocurrency, I look at, so precious metals, present, crypto, future, where I can expand upon what I have. So that's how I kind of look at it. And that's where I try to start the education off.
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense to me. So that would be great to
yeah, no,
spread that word.
I'll contact you so we can work it out and schedule it either for the next week or two. So depending on your availability and mine, we'll figure it out. But we'll definitely make it happen. So Peter, I really appreciate your time today. And like I said, before I bring you back on for the next one, I'll make sure that I watch those first two conversations so that we can be up to speed beyond today's catch-up video. I'm going to have links down below for everything we talked about. And I encourage people to head over to your YouTube channel. Speaking of your YouTube, have you taken this your stuff to other video platforms yet?
I'm I've had so much work on, and craziness with dogs as well, trying to rescue more dogs. That I know that's a terrible excuse, but like, you know, just like life takes you away from work, and but I've only done tiny bits, but I am going to get everything moved over a bit, shoot for sure. And
Let me here. I'm going to show you something real quick. So here, can you see this on the screen?
Yeah.
This is Odyssey. If you were to go to Odyssey and you click on sign up, you put your email in that you're using for your account for your YouTube channel, create your password, make sure you click sync my YouTube channel. See that?
Yeah.
And then sign up. And it will automatically create and sync all your videos from YouTube over on Odyssey.
I'm doing that tomorrow.
Super simple process, super simple. And then you can do the same thing on Rumble. On Rumble, let me see here. I had to sign into my account, and I don't have a way to sign in on this browser. But there is, once you get into Rumble, you'll see a place in the back end where you can sync your YouTube channel, and it, again, will automatically transfer your videos for you. So you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is set up the account and then go through the process of sync your YouTube channel. I can help you with it, but I think that your channel is providing valuable information, and I'd hate to see all that information get lost because YouTube decided they want to remove you from the platform.
Yeah.
Now, if you do this the right way, sooner than later, all your stuff will be transferred over. So if something did happen and you did lose your YouTube channel, you would already have 2 other video platforms where those videos can be found.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Definitely doing that straight away. I didn't know you could just click a button and it would transfer it. So yeah,
Rumble didn't offer that until a few months ago. Odyssey's had it, but Rumble is gaining a lot more traction and popularity than Odyssey. But at the same time, I would utilize as many as you can. And if you do it this way, it doesn't add in any extra work on your end.
Yeah,
because it automatically does the transfer for you. So it's super simple, very not time consuming, and it protects your assets.
Yeah, that's it. That's the time, like which I've just never had and didn't have, like, just on a back end, because before, I didn't realize it's been that long since we'd spoke. But I've tried I haven't tried. I have rescued more dogs, bought dogs over from Spain. And one of them literally tried to kill me and ended up in hospital for a week, and yeah. And then like I had a bike accident, so that I ended up in hospital again. It was like, I've never been in a hospital for years and years and years. And then I feel like I was living there. Fucking madness. But
well, they definitely charge you rent.
Eh?
They definitely charge you rent.
Yeah. Oh God, man. It's been but I used like laws and stuff like that to stop me. Like, they wanted to test and they wanted to do this, and like they left me alone completely once I'd shown my diplomatic pass. And then I got put in a private room, You know, I wandered around the hospital on my own, totally fine. They didn't bother me whatsoever. No, none of this nonsense stuff. But yeah, nearly they wouldn't let me in at first. That my hand got bitten. The dog bit me when I was trying to rescue it. It was massive. It was like huge, big old poisoned hand, the whole arm going right up the arm. It was terrible. Yeah.
That sounds nasty. Okay, so next time I bring you on, we're gonna have to dive into the PMA stuff, talk about some of these things that you've had success with opening bank accounts. And then you said something about diplomatic pass. So I'm going to leave people lingering and hanging on that. And that's where we'll try to continue on our next conversation when you come back on the channel. Before we wrap up, again, everything we talked about is going to be linked down below. Do you have any final thoughts, anything you want to add to today's conversation before we do close up today's interview?
No, I just thank you very much again for having me on again. I've loved every conversation we've had, loved all the information coming from yourself as well. Very pleased to be part of the channel and look forward to the next time. And thank you for everybody for that's giving me the time to listen to me as well.
Well, thank you, my friend. Bear with me real quick. I'm just going to do the wrap up and stop recording.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, again, everything we talked about is going to be linked down below. If you've watched all of this and you still haven't watched the first 2 interviews with Peter, they are going to be linked down below. Make sure you catch those before you watch the future conversations, because the next time Peter's on, we're going to be continuing where we left off on his second interview, to kind of continue and then fill in a little bit of the blanks from today's conversation. So other than that, make sure you subscribe here at Rice Against the Grain and my other channel, Rice TVX. Make sure you subscribe to both. Follow me on other alternative video platforms such as Odyssey and Rumble. Again, links will be down below. Sign up for my mailing list at ricetvx.com so you can stay updated with all things Rice. And I will leave you with this. I encourage you to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch that you want to see in this matrix, and be the change that you want to see in the world. And until next time, practice change.